Good day to all. I am Cynthia Cadua, Principal of AREAJ Elementary School, District of GMA. I'm here in front of you to discuss about the elements of innovation, intervention, and strategy which I am sure will be very beneficial to us when coming up with our own research. The lecture outlines the following: scope and delimitation, specific approach or method or strategy to arrive at the expected result, as well as the source of innovation. May it be your work or that of others. We will also know the number of type of respondents. All of these have to be clarified, considered, and validated. Irrelevant data that come along has to be excluded, and authenticity is of prime importance. The first element, the scope and the limitation. This part talks about as to what extent your research will be dealing with, delimit, and set boundaries. To what extent and for whom it applies to. The scope and delimitation defines the parameters, boundaries, variables, and respondents. It also discusses the limitations and how are these should be handled. I have cited here several examples which can help you understand the concepts of scope and delimitation. Example number 1 is about uplifting the skills in solving word problems using vocabulary development and visual representation strategy for mathematics grade 5. Of course, this is only limited for mathematics grade 5. And this study is limited only during the conduct of remedial sessions and not in all lessons. Another example is the one flashed on the screen, which is only limited to the effect on the use of vocabulary mind games in enriching the vocabulary of only grade 5 pupils of Area J Elementary School and not all students of Area J. Same with this example, dialogic shared reading. This is only limited to grade 6 pupils of Area J. The number 2 element is the specific approaches and strategies. The different approaches and strategies of research are the following. First is the qualitative study. In here, qualitative data includes words, opinions, thoughts, feelings, and behaviors. The advantage is that you get lots of detail about specific cases, people, or group. The disadvantages are that you can make general statements and that analysis is time-consuming. Some would argue that the analysis is also very subjective, but this depends on your approach. On the other hand, quantitative data is numbers and statistics. The advantage here is that you can collect and analyze much more information. With good design, that means you can make general statements about what is likely to be true overall. A drawback can be a lack of depth. Example, reasons why, context, emotions, or feelings. Also, it requires mathematical and or statistical knowledge to be able to analyze the data effectively. Then there comes mixed study, which is a combination of the two. Mixed methods means that you collect both quantitative and qualitative data and analyze both together to answer your question. For instance, say you wanted to know whether parents' feelings about reading with their children affected children's reading scores. You could interview parents, sort them into groups. Example, confident, mixed feelings, and anxious, and compare the test scores of children whose parents fall into different groups. I have here again the 3 researches that I presented a while ago. These researches show the strategies that the researcher used in their study. For number 1, the researcher used vocabulary development and visual representation strategy. Number 2, paggamit ng vocabulary or mind games sa pagpapalawak ng bokabularyo. And number 3, dialogic shared reading. The number 3 element is the respondents. In here, we have to consider the experimental group or the control group. An experimental group, sometimes called a treatment group, is a group that receives a treatment in an experiment. The group, it is made up of test subjects like people, animals, plants, cells, and others. And the treatment is the variable you are studying. For example, a human experimental group from grade 6 pupils could receive a new learning modality in education like modular, online, or homeschooling. For the controlled group, a simple example of a control group can be seen in an experiment in which the researcher tests whether or not the new learning modality in education has an effect on the student's learning capacity or ability. The negative control group would be face-to-face or the traditional learning, but under the exact same conditions as the experimental group. The last but not the least, or the number 4 in the elements of innovation, intervention, and strategy is the originality value. Originality value is very important in research. One can be sued for plagiarism if proven that the research is not done on their own capacity but only copied someone else's work. There are also several online tools which are readily available as to check whether the research is original or copied. The 3 researches that I presented previously has the following originality value. In this research, uplifting the skills in solving word problems using vocabulary developments and visual representation strategy for mathematics grade 5, the research had proven the positive effect of uplifting the literacy level in solving word problems independently. Dito naman sa pangalawang research na may titulong paggamit ng vocabulary mind games sa pagpapalawak ng bokabularyo, isang maagap na interbensyon sa paglinang ng kasanayan sa mabilis na pag-unawa sa binasa ng mga mag-aaral sa Baitang 5 ng AREAJ Elementary School ay ipinakita ng pananaliksik ang kahalagahan ng paggamit ng vocabulary or mind games sa pagpapaunlad ng antas o level ng pag-unawa sa binasa. Naging matagumpay ito dahil naging kawili-wili at kapanapanabik ang mga gawain sa pagpapaunlad ng bokabularyo na nakapukaw sa interes ng mga mag-aaral sa pagbasa na may pag-unawa. The next research, dialogic shared reading, an effective intervention to improve reading comprehension skills of grade 6 pupils of AREAJ Elementary School. The researchers' new intervention was primarily designed to help those struggling learners, specifically in reading comprehension, and to have fun while reading. The researchers used reading materials in dialogic form, which were creatively and comprehensively planned and crafted to utilize the dialogic writing, a proposed innovation, intervention, and strategy in research study. What can we consider when we want to write a proposed innovation, intervention, and strategy in research. In writing a proposed innovation, intervention, and strategy in research study, an action research proposal is the first element to consider. In here, you're going to mention an intervention, innovations, or strategy to be tried out to address the problem or issue. Next is the proposal outlines when and where the innovation, intervention, or strategy will be undertaken and who will be involved. Activities to be undertaken here are stated. Then, the rationale, extent, and limitation of the intervention, innovation, or strategy are explained in detail. Its plausibility to address the problem or issue is given support. For the examples of innovation, intervention, and strategy in research study, I will be presenting to you the researches with the following elements which I discussed a moment ago. If you have time, please take a screenshot and in your respective homes, kindly identify which are the innovation, intervention, or strategy. Consider the respondents, the issue or problem, the step-by-step procedure at arriving the goal or outcome of the study. For this research, let's find out the strategy. Let's find out the strategy only used by the researcher so that in your own home, the strategy, you're not going to find out the strategy. We're going to find the strategy now in this research. Okay, so take a look on this research and find out the strategies that the researcher used. Here are the strategies used by the researcher. In here, the researcher used two phases for her strategy. The phase one is the vocabulary strategy, wherein the researcher decoded the terms used in the problem so that the pupils had a better understanding in the problem. In this phase, the pupils got familiarized to the terms that usually read along in the problem. And in the phase 2, the visual representation, wherein the problem was transferred into visual representation so that the pupils could understand the word problem. Through this strategy, the researcher made use of drawings, graphs, or listing numbers and others, or anything that is appropriate to visualize the problem. Okay, did you find the correct strategies used by the researcher? If you did, you are very good. For this one, find out the strategies used. Ano nga ba kaya ang ginamit ng mananaliksik sa kanyang pag-aaral na ito na may pamagat na paggamit ng vocabulary or mind games sa pagpapalawak ng bokabularyo, isang maagap na interbensyon sa paglinang ng kasanayan sa mabilis na pag-unawa sa binasa ng mga mag-aaral sa Baitang 5 ng AREAJ Elementary School. Ano nga kaya ang ginamit dito ng guro? Tingnan kaya natin, kaya natin itong maibigay agad sa akin matapos natin itong mabasa sumandali. Tingnan lang po natin at upang malaman natin kung ano ang ginamit ng guro dito sa kanyang pag-aaral na ito. O ayan, tingnan naman natin kung tama ang inyong sagot sa estratehiyang ginamit ng guro. Dito kasi ay gumamit ang guro ng laro. At narito naman ang mga larong kanyang ginamit. Number 1 or nabilang isa, iarte mo, hulaan ko. Sa larong ito ay iaarte ng isang mag-aaral ang salitang nais pahulaan. Ang mga salitang isa sa kilos ay nakasulat sa strip ng papel at dito ay iaangkop ang sagot sa sinakilos sa salita sa kamangbilang ng pangungusap depende sa mabubunot na salita. Pangalawa, ang pilenyo. Dito naman ay pipili ng isang bata para hulaan ang salitang nakasulat sa flashcard na maaaring idikit sa noo. Mapapalawak ang talasalitaan dito sa pamamagitan ng paghuhula ng mga salita depende sa kategoryang binanggit. Ang may pinakamaiksing minuto ng paghula ang tatanghaling panalo. Ang word war ang ikatlo. Dito ay isasaayos ng mga bata ang halong-halo o gulo-gulong letra upang mabuo ang salita ayon sa kahulugan nito. At ang panghapat, ang letra sa kahon. Dito sa pamamaraang ito ay may mga serye ng kahon depende sa bilang ng letra ng salita na maaaring pantay, pataas o pababa depende sa forma ng letra. Next is the dialogic share reading, another research, of course, with different strategies used. Okay, so in here, this is the example of dialogic shared reading made or composed by the researcher. Then, questions answered from the dialogue itself. And with that, thank you very much for listening. And I would like to end my presentation with this quote from Bruce Barton. Nothing splendid has ever been achieved except by those who dared believe that something inside them was superior to circumstances. Thank you very much. Maraming salamat po.